Hey folks, let's spend some time with friends up north. Pat Kreitlow of Up North News is on Lake Wissota. Kristin Bry of As Goes Wisconsin is along Lake Michigan. And up on Lake Minocqua is Kirk Bangstead of the Minocqua Brewing Company. Wherever you are, welcome, because you're up north.
Welcome to the cabin. You've made it up north. Nice to have you here. I'm Pat Kreitlow, managing editor of upnorthnewswi.com.
And I'm Kristin Bry. You can find my short political comedy videos at As Goes Wisconsin.
And I'm Kirk Bangstead at the Minocqua Brewing Company.
We're going to talk about Kirk's lack of volume control in just a few seconds here. But first, a reminder that we do join you live every Wednesday evening at 7 on Devil Radio News Talk 92.7 and play it back over the weekend. We post it at upnorthpodcast.com. Our email address is info@upnorthpodcast.com. Our guests are State Senator Jeff Smith in a few minutes, talking about a new proposal to take redistricting out of the hands of gerrymandering politicians. And in our second half hour, we talked to Kyle Lowe, a member of the Marathon County Board, which was featured in the New York Times this week for still, after a year of division, being unable to pass a resolution declaring themselves a welcoming community for people from all walks of life. Dear fellow white people, grow the hell up. That's what we'll talk about in the second half hour. And later, cheeseheads, chuckleheads, or both. But first, we have to start with an explanation of what exactly happened when all hell broke loose at the end of last week's show. Kirk and I sometimes are on Lake Minocqua and Lake Wissota, respectively. And sometimes we're in Madison at our radio home. And for the first time, both of us were in the radio station. Kristin was in a secure, undisclosed location somewhere along Lake Michigan. And you may know that we all take turns introducing the show, and Kirk sometimes is rather energetic in the way that he says, "Welcome back to the show." I learned that at our particular radio home, there's a computer that sits right underneath the desk where Kirk was sitting. And as he kicked his feet out in a moment of joy, he managed to kick the power button on the computer. I mean, this is somebody, on the space shuttle going, "What does this button do?" Or something like that. It was really something, I got to say. And our producer, Evan, God bless him, knew that he had to hit a button too, the dump button, because Kirk forgot that he was at a government licensed radio station where there are 7 words you cannot say. He only said one of the words, but he said it about 7 times. Kirk, I'm glad you lived to tell, man.
So yeah, I mean, I haven't done live radio like ever. This is like the 8th or 9th, no, the 10th show I think we've done. So every time I do this every week, I get all jazzed up. So don't hate me because I'm excited. I would blame Crute for like putting the darn
here we go
radio computer right by my feet. I mean, who doesn't want to swing their legs when they're feeling joyous?
Let's find out. Kristin, we're taking.
Well, I would say this is the thing. I feel like in most elements of my life, like most people when they know me, it's like I'm loud. Can be klutzy, but I feel like I get around Kirk and I feel like a ballerina. Like he's just he's ashamed as far as like being just like a moderate, like mild mannered lady versus Kirk, who's just.
He does.
You never know what you're gonna get.
He makes me feel like a mild-mannered lady by comparison as well, and we do appreciate the energy. So thanks for keeping us there. And you notice we're all back in our home locations now, and we haven't been banned from the station, but we may not be there for a bit. We're actually taking next week off on our Wednesday night show because Kirk is going to have a special live edition of the Up North podcast from his, what did we call this? The Inoculation Emancipation Party. You want to tell us what you're up to?
Yeah. So next week, you guys need. I mean, I'd love to have you there, but you guys have Memorial Day weekend planned. So Crute's going to come up to Stevens Point with me or Custer. Minocqua didn't let me have the party, even though my Minocqua was in my name.
That's a whole story. Yeah.
But so we're doing this Inoculation Emancipation Party. We're going to broadcast live from there, and we're going to talk about getting vaccinated. We're going to have people live vaccinations happening to people who want to get them, and we're going to give them free beer if they get vaccinated. And I got a lineup of 4 awesome bands that are playing, so it's going to be a good party, celebrating safety. I say celebrating the freedom that we all get once we get vaccinated. The inoculation emancipation party.
I like it, and we're up to somewhere between 40 and 42% of the entire Wisconsin population is fully vaccinated. Again, it's not what they say we need for herd immunity, but that is a ton of you out there who have been doing the right thing and hopefully can now go about having some Memorial Day plans that are a lot different than they were last year. Kristin, yours, I don't think yours is Memorial Day weekend, but you're already planning road trips of your own for the summer.
Yeah, well, I would say I had a realization, so I had a pretty busy weekend. So I was in Madison on Friday, was with a bunch of different friends Friday night who were all vaccinated. Saturday, I got to meet one of my oldest friends' babies, who was only 8 weeks. Sunday, went to a Brewers game. Monday was back in Madison. And it was just like taking a moment to realize how great it was to do all these things with me being vaccinated, and everyone I was going to be with was vaccinated. And so that was like taking a step back and realizing how excited I am for some normalcy. And because I am an extrovert, so being with people is definitely important to me. But yeah, so then this summer, last 2 weeks of July, since I came back last year, there's a lot of things I'm experiencing for the first time as an adult in Wisconsin. And far, far up north, expert level Wisconsin is one of them. And so my side of the family, my dad's side of the family my aunt and uncle have a cabin in Danbury. And so that's going to start the trip. And then my boyfriend and I are going to do just a road trip for a week and just stop at as many places as we can, make a bunch of videos, meet a bunch of people. And we're actually ending in Minocqua. So hopefully you'll be there then, Kirk, and we can come say hi. But yeah, so I had posted that, and I have over 400 emails and comments and things to go through to start making my list. But I think what I'm going to do is, once I actually have the list, I'm going to post it, and so it can be public.
I see that there's like 400 in there, but remember, we're coming off a year of quarantine. 275 of those are marriage proposals, without any doubt, just because people have not been out, and they want to meet. No, I hope you get great ideas. And I couldn't help but note, you talked about this is expert level up north, and it gets us to that point of what constitutes expert level up north, what constitutes up north. And again, it's the old debate. Is it 10? Is it 29? Is it 8? And of course, the hardcore, it's 2 or nothing, which basically means you can spit into Lake Superior. Yeah.
2 or no? Who says 2 or nothing? Come on.
A lot of fine people in the Ashland Bayfield metropolitan area. That's who.
God.
Yeah.
That's just not allowed.
So yeah, I hope the ideas continue to come in, because again, you're now in this position of making these videos that, thanks to the marvels of modern technology, can be done with a phone in your hand from any place on God's green earth. So I mean, the material has got to feel like it's almost limitless.
That's what because I also feel like I'm going to meet some characters, right? And I'm excited to have a lot of different conversations. And it's also just so beautiful that time of year. Although I feel like I have to invest in lightweight, long sleeve everything, so I don't get eaten alive.
I got one character. When you go to Minocqua, there's a guy named Marvin that plays the guitar out in front of the yacht club, and he is a character. Just right. That's my one rec for you.
That'll work. Yeah, that'll work. Definitely.
Marvin.
And it's not really a yacht club, let me tell you, but it's called the yacht club.
Come on, we've got
boat club
here on Lake Wissota. There is something called the Red Neck NEK Yacht YOT Club with a K, spray painted on the side of a pontoon that cruises Lake Wissota. So yeah, we understand the whole yacht club mentality up north. Hey, still to come, Kahlo takes us through the debate over inclusiveness on the Marathon County Board. But first, State Senator Jeff Smith on the fight to finally get fair maps back in Wisconsin. You are up north.
Pat. I'm Kristin Bry, along with Kirk and Pat Kreitlow. In this segment tonight, we have an interview with State Senator Jeff Smith of Eau Claire about a subject near and dear to Kirk's heart, the fight against gerrymandering.
Yes, you got it, Kristin. As probably many of you know, there's two things I love in life, and one is obviously brewing beer, and the other is preaching about gerrymandering. It's like I wake up every morning and I'm like mad about gerrymandering, and I go to bed and I'm happy that at least I've talked about it, so I'm not mad all day. So gerrymandering is a direct threat to our democracy. The only way to fight it is to take the power away from politicians to draw their own maps. While the Republican majority legislature is unlikely to draw the maps fairly this year, it doesn't mean that we don't have to put up a fight and make this issue visible to the public. So that's why a group of legislators this week introduced a bill mandating fair maps. And earlier today, Kristin and Pat spoke with Senator Smith, one of the sponsors of the bill, which was celebrated by a big crowd that gathered on the steps of the state capitol. So we're going to listen to this tape right now.
Senator Jeff Smith joins us. Senator, how are you?
I'm doing just fine today. How are you?
You should be. Well, we're great, thanks. You know, it's not every week that when somebody introduces a bill, there's like a small marching band, a crowd on the Capitol steps, and a rally. So, I mean, clearly you think that this bill about fair maps is going to mean a great deal to a lot of folks. Why do you think that is?
Well, it is, and you're right. 200 to 300 people showed up on the steps of the Capitol. Marching band, Forward Wisconsin. It was exciting. It was a great day. Weather was perfect. It was meant to be. And why is this a big deal? Is because the state of Wisconsin and constituency and the state of Wisconsin have been waiting for this to happen for at least 10 years. They finally understand how dramatic gerrymandering can affect their state, and things that they really care about don't happen. And our legislators are frozen in place because they don't do the people's will. So they understand it now, and it is the people's will that we have nonpartisan redistricting.
That's what I find so interesting. So I was gone from 2003 to 2020. I'm raised in Madison, but was gone for the first go around of when all of this changed in 2010, 2011. And I think obviously it seems I was there on Monday, and obviously what it felt like is how many people are excited and riled up about this now. But for both Pat and Jeff, as far as, did just no one pay attention that closely 10 years ago? And it just wasn't on no one's radar. And that's kind of how they, for lack of a better term, like got away with it. And do you think because so many more people are aware now that like they won't?
You are talking to the right two people about 10 years ago. I'll tell you, I feel like we're the poster childs of this situation. You know, we lost fair elections in 2010. We both did. We'll admit that. But then the maps were totally redrawn. There's no way in 2012 or 2014 they would have hung on to those seats if they had not gerrymandered this state after the things that they did to this state. So yeah, it was not on people's radar. If I would have, and I did, I was number 2 on the bill in 2010 that we tried to pass the same bill back then. I was the chair of the committee. I had a hearing. I'm the only, as you heard, I'm the only legislator to ever actually have a hearing on this bill, because power does go to people's heads and they think, oh no, I'm going to draw the maps, you know. Well, you couldn't get people to understand it. You know, go right over their heads, their eyes would roll back, and I don't want to hear about this. This is too complicated. Well, now people know. So it is a huge difference.
Now, it is a big difference, because at the time when we first saw the maps, and when we first learned what the process was like, that the Republican legislators were made to sign secrecy oaths, that these maps were drawn in private attorneys' offices rather than with any kind of public input, we did try to let people know. We tried to let people, in media and in other circles know, and it was chalked up to, oh, I'm sure both sides do it that way. You fast forward a few years, a couple of election cycles, when it's clear that Democrats statewide actually got more votes, but significantly fewer seats. Now it is widely accepted by Wisconsin news media and others that this was a gerrymander. They use gerrymandering in the term. They use the term in their articles now. We couldn't get them to say it back then because they didn't recognize exactly what it was until, long after the crime had been complete.
Yeah, and that's what I always come back to. And I think that resonates with people too, because I think anyone who's above millennial and older understands what technology was in the 90s and early aughts and understands what it was in the early 2010s. And like in a span of 10 years, how much changed and how much more precise. Like, yes, every side always had done it in the past, but with that time, then 10 years ago, just with the precision, like a neurosurgeon precision of what they were able to do and the data they were able to use to have it be worse than it had ever been or more egregious than it had ever been.
And just remember, in 2011, that was the first time of redistricting in recent history, and I mean recent being the last 50 years, that we did not have a split government, that we did not have a Republican legislature and a Democratic governor or vice versa. So they had clear sailing, and that's the first time we've had that experience.
Which is why the line both sides do it. What was wrong then and continued to be wrong because it had never been done like this with that level of precision. But again, it went through the courts process and the U.S. Supreme Court, and Justice Kennedy ultimately punted on the question and then retired shortly thereafter. So the lines stand where they are after a full decade of doing what they did, and now the lines are going to be coming up again. Now, Jeff, as Kristin mentioned in her report, the people who actually drew these lines are not likely to want to give up the power to change these lines, but they could look out the windows of their Capitol offices and see you and all the others that do support this. If the bill doesn't pass, again, we don't think that it will, but what do you think the next steps are, both in this session and then, beyond into the 2022 election cycle?
We totally understand that this bill is not going to affect this redistricting. This is already a process that's on people's minds and being planned. And I'm sure even they have maps in their computers ready to go, right? And by the way, the legislators never draw the maps. Let's make sure that clear. Whenever they say, well, the Constitution says that we draw the maps, but no, they sign secrecy oaths to lawyers who draw the maps, right? So just to make that very clear. So what's going to happen is we're going to be in the courts, and the courts are going to decide which maps should be approved and sent back to the legislature. And we're hoping that the People's Maps Commission, I personally am, which the governor has already organized and had hearings. They've had hearings around the state. Will come up with a fair map that the courts will really take a strong and close look at. And I also think we should have maps on either side. Say this is your choices. Either you have gerrymandered one way or gerrymandered the other way, or you have this one map that actually gives everybody a fair chance.
That was actually going to be my next question, was the process of Democrats drawing maps, because I think right now, because the People's Maps Commission is Governor Evers' project, it's easy if there's only two options, the People's Maps and what the current legislature comes up with, then it's like, well, that's the Democrat map, and it's not, right? And so having the three options of the one way, the other way, and what is actually fair, I would hope is the strategy.
Well, it logically should be, right? It logically should be. So let's hope we do have some common sense this time around. It is so important, though, and I know you guys understand that. And Pat, I know specifically you and I understand this very clear, that we are frozen. We can't get anything done because we have so heavily cited one legislature.
And it gets at a legislature that can do what it wants, even on issues where 70% of the public feels a certain way on certain issues, whether it's fair maps, whether it's gun safety, whether it's Medicaid expansion. But you don't have to do the will of the majority if you've locked in essentially minority rule. Senator Jeff Smith, we really appreciate your time. Thanks for bringing the bill to everybody's attention, and we'll look forward to visiting again soon.
Thanks, Pat. I hope to get this passed and we can serve as public servants again instead of slaves to our party.
Thank you very much, Jeff. See ya. And there you go. That was our interview earlier with Senator Jeff Smith. So Kirk, as the Up North podcast patron saint of redistricting, what'd you think?
I thought it was great because I love to hear that history from 10 years ago, because I was in New York 10 years ago. And so I heard about this on the news nationally, but I didn't really hear about the actual, when the rubber hit the road. And I just wanted to follow up. I mean, it was a great interview, but, even though the Republican majority legislature, has the majority, and so they're probably not going to vote for what we think are fair maps, I'm not letting that stop me at the Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC. We've spent $30,000 on making phone calls to up north cities to educate people about gerrymandering and about fair maps, and to call the Republican legislators to tell them that they demand fair maps. And we want them to remember, if the fair maps aren't drawn to on the 2022 elections, that these guys voted to cheat. And so we believe that still is a reason to fight for this.
We will have more after the break. You're Up North.
Welcome back to the Up North podcast. I'm Kirk Bangstead, along with Kristin Bry and Pat Kreitlow.
And joining us here in the cabin is Kyle Lowe, a member of the Marathon County Board. The group featured in a New York Times article about the divisiveness of seeking inclusivity. Supervisor Lowe, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Well, to have national attention for community division isn't normally the kind of thing sought by anyone who wants their hometown cast in the best possible light, but sometimes it takes a little extra attention from, beyond your boundaries to, break up what I can only imagine felt like a feedback loop of the same points over and over again, back and forth for a year, about either the need to embrace racial tolerance and celebrate diversity, or that somehow that is a bad thing. So I want to start first with whether you think the coverage this week, once things settle down, will lead to more productive discussions.
Oh, I definitely think so. It will lead to more productive discussions, because now we were thrown out into the national spotlight. And, there are a lot of people out there who are saying, hey, I used to live here and I moved away and I will never come back, And then there are people who are like, oh, that is one city, one place where now I'm going to put on that list where I'm never going to go. And we depend on people coming here because our population is aging out. That is a conversation that we're having in Marathon County, that we want young people to stay here, to come here, because our population is aging out and we're not going to have that workforce.
Yeah, that's a topic that I think about a lot. But even let's just take it back from the very beginning. So what prompted the original resolution? So what did it originally say? I know it kind of went through different iterations. And what was the early debates like?
Yeah, so when it first was written, it was originally called No Place for Hate. And it was written right after George Floyd was murdered. And so in the resolution, there was a lot of talk about social justice, just social equity, for people, inclusion, diversity. And then the conversation first started very normal. I went through the normal processes, and then people started getting wind of it. And then next thing you know, there were a lot of people who were coming to the meetings. They had issues with the word equity. We started getting a lot of emails about the word equality versus equity. They didn't want equity. They wanted equality, which was so weird to me, because I'm thinking, don't you want to help your fellow man? If he's not doing good and you're doing better, wouldn't you want him to do as good as you? But that's where the conversation divulged into, and then it divulged into this whole critical race theory. Like, I don't even know what critical race theory is.
Nobody does. Trust me. Nobody who's bringing it up. It's a buzzword that, we don't even have to go into, but they aren't using it properly.
Yeah, so bizarre. Yep. So bizarre.
Kirk.
So Kai, I want to go back to in terms of equity. First of all, I'm a Christian guy, and when I think about, when I went to Sunday school, like my Christianity is all about lifting up those that are struggling. That's what seemingly, and I don't want to get too religious, obviously, but that's what Jesus did to lots of people. And so equity to me, and you can believe in any religion you want to, but I think there's probably pieces of that in every single faith. And what I don't understand is, what right-wing conservatives have done is weaponize the word to mean something that it is not. Equity in justice and respect and opportunity and rights is not a zero-sum game. There's this meme that talks about if I give something to people of color, I'm not taking it away from white people. This is not pie. That's like this, like it's not like, it's not like this, it's not like this, this piece of dessert that just goes away. It's just a thought. So talk a little bit more about that for me, would you?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. I mean, there was one county board supervisor said that he was a Christian. He was a Christian man, and then he quoted Rush Limbaugh. It was like, yeah. It was crazy to me. A lot of there was like one or two emails where I received where they talked about God is the person who gives the ultimate justice, and I was like, yeah, and I was like, but there was Jesus, so I had to say to her, I would encourage you to think about the teachings of Jesus, and so like, yeah, they've twisted this all around into something that works for them. Like, works for them in what I was thinking today is it works for them in the depths of Jim Crow, and it really doesn't work when you're thinking about true Christianity, true love, true caring. It doesn't make sense when you're thinking about your neighbor in the sense of this is what Jesus taught in the Bible. Whoever's a Christian, they usually forget about Jesus, and which is, to me, it doesn't make sense. Jesus is central to Christianity.
Right. And that's where we get that whole notion of equity. Now, there's another word that seems to have been twisted all out of place. But to get to it, I've got to share with what I think, without a doubt, is the ugliest part of the New York Times article. And it was about one of your elderly board members who said, and I want to make this clear, I'm reading this quote verbatim because it's going to offend some people. He said, let me get ready for this here. They're creating strife between people, labeling us as racist and privileged because we're white. You can't come around and tell people that work their tails off from daylight to dark and tell them that they got white privilege and they're racist and they got to treat the Hmongs and the coloreds and the gays better because they're racist. People are sick of it. End of quote. So, Ka, I don't know whether to ask if old white guys think they're the only ones who work their tails off, or if this is instead an opportunity to finally clear the air on privilege, that acknowledging privilege isn't a weakness. It's not an indictment. Privilege is just a modern way of expressing an old saying, understand what you have, because a lot of folks don't have it as good as you through no fault of their own. So, Ka, how do you explain the concept of privilege? I was going to say as a doorway to understanding, but maybe a conversation about privilege as the start of building a bridge.
Yeah, privilege, it's something that people are born with, the color of your skin, what your family makes, for money.
What you endure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're born with more than other people, you have privilege. If you're born with lighter skin, we live in this system where persons with lighter skin, they get a lot more advantages, and like, that is not something that's new. That is something that has been a part of American history for a very, very, very long time, since the beginning, and so it's not anything that's new. And so that's how I like to explain privilege. It's, hey, you were born with more, whether that's the skin, the color of your skin, your socioeconomics, whether it's all physical, really.
It's physical, and it's things that you can't know what you don't live unless you've seen, more of the world. And Kirk, you were mentioning this earlier, people that bring up the concept of, there's no racism here. That's not it. It's that there's no experience with what racism has been, because not only have they not lived it, they don't know anybody who's lived through it. And so to them, it's invisible. But, again, because it's invisible to you, Kirk, doesn't mean it's not up there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I grew up in Stevens Point, a half hour south of Wausau. There might have been one black kid in my high school, at the time. Like, it took me until I went to college to actually understand that there were people of color and Jews and Asians and black folks, that went to my college. It took me till that. So I understand the lack of understanding about this. If you work on a farm and you don't see people of color, you're not really going to think about diversity a whole lot. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't think about it or deal with it and understand it, because Wausau has become more diverse over the last 20 years. And so I think it's important that a place that's got 97% white people in it still pass resolutions when bad things happen to people of color, like the George Floyd murder, that they talk about that. So thank you, Ka, for being on the right side of history on this, and for pushing to pass bills that have no financial implications on the budget of Marathon County, by the way. This was just a puff bill to just acknowledge that bad things happen to George Floyd and to people of color, and somehow or another, it became a big brouhaha, and I just still can't understand why.
What I think is interesting, as far as none of us, the three of the hosts, do not live in Marathon County. And I always think it's interesting as far as who makes the most noise versus what actual representation of attitudes are in the area. And so as far as over the last year and of trying to get this passed, and who came out of the woodwork and who spoke up and who didn't, like, what do you feel like the people who really created a lot of obstacles from, as Kirk just said, something that was not, it's not like you were reallocating budget, like municipal budgets. It's not like there was any actual stake in the ground proclamations besides just saying, like, hey, no place for hate. Like, who's for hate, right? And so do you feel like the sentiment is more of the general Marathon County citizen is more on inclusivity, and there's just there's a smaller minority that was just really loud? Or do you think there is a lot of work to do?
It's a smaller minority that's very loud.
Got it.
I was born and raised here. I know the people here, they're not like that at all. And so it was a very small, very loud minority group.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, Kristin, go ahead.
No. I was just going to follow up on that. So if you got to take it somewhere else, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to see where we take that from here. Now, we know that Wausau Mayor Katie Rosenberg issued a proclamation about Wausau being a community for all, but the Marathon County Board almost certainly has to take this up again, Ka. So to wrap things up in our final minute, what do you think happens next? And what can people both inside and outside of Marathon County do to be helpful to this process?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a rule in our county board rules that 2 supervisors can bring a resolution up to the full board. So I know that there are 2 supervisors that are talking about that. So this is not the last that we've heard of it. And then because of Mayor Katie Rosenberg's proclamation yesterday, there's a lot of people that are excited now. And so now she's hearing a lot of things from people. They want t-shirts, they want yard signs, they want a community for all march and other things. And so I think people are excited. People are ready to say, hey, we are a community for all. What was said in the New York Times is not us. And they're ready to show Marathon County that what the executive committee did was wrong.
Kyle, we really appreciate your time coming on here. And I'm only sorry that we didn't have enough time to get into the other hat you wear, which is a member of the Wausau School Board, which went through a right-wing takeover in April, and what that has done in terms of community division. Not that we want to dwell on these things because it's a beautiful place to be, but we may have to visit with you again. And so we just wish you the best on both of those boards you serve on. And thank you again for taking some time with us up here.
Thanks.
All right. We'll take a break now. When we come back, cheeseheads, chuckleheads, or both, you're up north. The Up North podcast is a production of the 3 people you're hearing right now. No one else. No corporate cash, no donor dollars, nothing but the 3 of us yodeling about Wisconsin because A, we love it here. B, we're kind of news junkies, and C, if we didn't do our yapping here, we'd have to yap at all of our friends who are already hearing enough of us as it is. So now you get to hear from us. Lucky you. However, we also have day jobs, and we always like to take a moment to brag about them. Kristin.
All right. So I produce a daily series of social media videos that combines all things Wisconsin, whether it's history, sports, or politics. I break it down with a comedic twist in videos that are 60 seconds or less. So whether you find yourself on Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok the most, you can find them at As Goes Wisconsin.
All right, Kirk, what's new?
All right, so we have diverted our attention away from our fight against gerrymandering, calling out Tom Tiffany and Ron Johnson on lying to us and being traitors to our state, to focus on vaccination. So, as I said earlier in the show, we're calling this thing the Inoculation Emancipation Tour. It's a full day of awesome live music and beer to celebrate the freedom that comes with communities getting vaccinated, meaning that people have to show they've been fully vaccinated to attend the party. More importantly, we are teaming up with county health departments and private healthcare providers to offer a tent where people can get a shot and a vaccine and free beer all day. A shot and a beer. The first event will be at Clancy's Stone Lion in Custer, Wisconsin, in the Stevens Point area on Saturday, May 29th at 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And the second event will be at Funk's Pub in Fitchburg, Wisconsin on Saturday, June 12th from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. So for more information, we've created some events on our Facebook page. Please check it out.
And that Facebook page, search for Minocqua Brewing.
You got it.
All right.
Man.
And I'm Pat Kreitlow here to remind you, the Up North podcast is an independent endeavor, not part of my paid employment over at Up North News, a place you can find at upnorthnewswi.com or search Up North News WI. Don't forget the WI on social media. You can sign up for the daily newsletter I assemble every weekday morning by visiting our website and clicking newsletter up in the top banner. We give you about 4 to 5 of the most important stories to know if you want to follow the issues that matter to families in Wisconsin and the decision makers who do or don't do the right things to keep our state a great place to live. Again, that's upnorthnewswi.com. Kristin, this is the part where you thank Devil Radio.
Oh, Devil Radio. Thank you. Because you changed it up on me.
I told you.
He did. He threw her for a curveball.
You
want me to do it, Kristin?
No,
you want me to do it?
We want to thank Devil Radio News Talk at 92.7, where we air live on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Be sure to download the Devil's Radio app, and so you can listen to the station live on the go and get shows on demand and more.
And remember, you can email the show at info@upnorthpodcast. Oh, shucks. info@upnorthpodcast.com.
So, by the way, This block of shameless self-promotion is what will be filled with us shamelessly lauding over an advertiser if anyone offers us more than $1.25 for what is clearly a valuable block of radio spectrum space. So put your message here. As you can tell, we'll take real good care of it. Now, normally this is the part of the show where Kirk does the welcome back, but as mentioned already, his boisterous welcome back last week knocked the damn show off the air. So even though Kristin said we're normally on from 7 till 8, that's not guaranteed, but hopefully we can get through the next 3.5 minutes. Kirk, you ready?
Welcome back to the Up North podcast. I'm Kirk Bangstead. This is Kristin Bryan. Following up with Chuckleheads and Cheeseheads is Pat Kreitlow.
All right, we're going to start with State Assemblyman Mark Bourne. He's the co-chair of the legislature's Joint Finance Committee, which makes him one of the top 5 most powerful Republicans in the state. Not exactly born yesterday. You'd think a typical white guy from West Bend would know better than to pop off the way he did during a meeting last week. He took issue with criticism from Milwaukee Democratic State Senator LaTanya Johnson, upset that among the Republicans' nearly 400 cuts to Governor Tony Evers' budget proposal was extra funding for the state's Black History Museum. Bourne could have let the moment pass, but then he wouldn't be a typical white male Republican from West Bend anymore, now would he? So Bourne condescendingly told the senator it was enough that the state capitol had a Black History display on the 3rd floor. A small and temporary display. Stay classy, grand old party. Our next bit of recognition goes to Congressman Tom Tiffany, who is recognized this week for the votes he's taken and the votes he has missed. As tabulated by Quorum and reported by Axios, Tiffany has missed the 3rd most votes of all freshman lawmakers, about 8.5% of the votes. Now, granted, that's only half as many as the recently retired Jim Sensenbrenner, who missed 17% of votes, but he was retiring, whereas Tiffany going AWOL is a matter of disrespect more than anything else. Surprisingly, there was one vote this week Tiffany could have skipped, but he chose not to. On Tuesday, by an overwhelming lopsided bipartisan vote, the House gave final approval to legislation to tackle a striking rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. The bill will expedite the review of hate crimes and make grants available to local law enforcement to improve investigations. This bill passed 364 to 62. Every Democrat voted for the bill to fight hate crimes. Every Republican from Wisconsin voted for the bill to fight hate crimes, except Tom Tiffany, who voted no. And our final bit of recognition this week goes to a true cheesehead.
Can we just, this is terrible. Okay, keep on going, but gosh, I hate this man. Okay, sorry. Keep on going.
Final bit of recognition this week in our last minute here goes to a true cheesehead who's changing jobs and covering your elected officials at the state capitol once more. It is, of course, Kristin's close personal friend, Jessie Opoyen, who after years on the Capitol beat made a lot of us happy, moving to the editorial page of the Cap Times so that her wicked fast takes on Twitter could evolve into full-fledged opinion pieces. Now she's moving back to cover the Capitol, where she feels her true calling as a reporter. So she's a cheesehead, not a chucklehead, and don't you dare call her a cream puff, because Jessie Opoyen is among the few willing to admit to not being a fan of the Wisconsin State Fair cream puffs. Kristin, you got to take a stand. Cream puff or no? Oh, come on, it's radio. You got to fill it here.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, sure. I would say I'm more as Jessie. As far as desserts go, there's other things I would rather have.
Kirk, cream puffs, mini donuts, something else.
Oh, I like the chocolate Hostess like mini donuts. I'll eat those in a whole package of 7.
That's not a fair food.
All right.
I don't care.
Info at upnorthpodcast.com. We are off next week. We will see you in 2 weeks. For Kristin Bryan, Kirk Bangstead, I'm Pat Kreitlow. See you next time up north.
Let me die.